Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1837A, and today's date is April 9th, 2019, and the title of the episode is Central Banks Panic Independence Question. Congress lost control of the Fed. Now, we know that Robert Mueller has been investigating Donald Trump for over 2 years now and has concluded that there is no case to answer on his colluding with Russia during his election campaign. Given that news, you would expect the markets to have soared. Instead, they've reacted by tanking, and there's nothing the markets hate more than political uncertainty. Now is not a good time to be fully committed to stocks. Gold has rallied along with silver this year, and it might be time to think about putting some of your money into precious metals. If you call Noble Gold, you can speak to one of their advisors about the pros and cons of buying precious metals. So click the link below to get your free gold IRA guide, or just call 877-646-5347 and make sure to mention X22 Report to get the free gold investment guide. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, we know that Trump, the Patriots, they're going to be shaping the narrative. They're going to be going after the central bank system. And the central bank right now, they're in a bit of a panic because we are seeing more and more articles talking about independence, how you need to leave the central bank alone. You shouldn't be touching the central bank. And then also, we're starting to hear that Congress might have lost control of the central bank, where the Fed right now is not following their mandate, and Congress is not holding the central bank to their mandate. And we're going to be talking about that in just a minute. But let's head out to the UK, because it seems like everything that we've been talking about, how the EU, how Theresa May, how the certain government officials, how they want to postpone the inevitable. The UK breaking away from the EU. The people voted, they had a referendum, and the government, the EU, they're not following what the people want. And all of a sudden, and this is really not a surprise to all of us, Prime Minister Theresa May is considering amending her withdrawal agreement to include a Commons vote on authorizing a second confirmation. Another referendum. I mean, this is just unbelievable. And we talked about this. They're going to do everything they possibly can to stop this. They do not want this to happen. And I think it's time for the people to speak out loudly and to say, enough is enough. We need to break away. Hopefully that happens. There are people that are out there saying, yeah, enough is enough. And we can see that those in government, those in the central bank, those that are in league with the central bank, they don't want this to happen. They're trying to stop it any way they possibly can. Because you have to remember, their biggest fear is to have a country leave and the country to prosper. So if the UK separates itself from the EU and they prosper, how do you think other countries are going to look at the EU? Well, the EU countries are doing poorly. The UK left and they're doing really, really well. Maybe we should leave. And you have to remember what's going on around the world. People are now questioning the central bank. People are saying, wait a minute. The globalist system, the central bank system, might not be what we need because it is not helping us. We spent many, many years, and all we've seen is austerity. We've seen debt, and we haven't seen anything improve. Yes, the elite, they've gotten richer, but everyone else, they're struggling. And Trump here in the United States, he's trying to put the United States on an even playing field because he knows we're going to be moving away from the Federal Reserve debt note, which is the reserve currency of the world. And what he needs to do is he needs to set up fair and balanced trade systems. This is why he's making bilateral trade deals all across the globe. And he's going to continue to do this. And he's going to use tariffs to leverage this. And no, tariffs are not going to bring down the global economy. I'm sorry, the global economy was doomed from the beginning once the central bank took over. Because the weight of debt on the entire system, it cannot be sustained. And their system was declining way before Trump. They just thought they were going to have an event to cover it all up. Now they're exposed. They don't know what to do. So what is Trump doing? Trump said on Tuesday that the European Union has taken advantage of U.S. trade. and it will soon stop. He tweeted out the following. The World Trade Organization finds that the European Union's subsidies to Airbus has adversely impacted the United States, which will now put tariffs on 11 billion of EU products. The EU has taken advantage of the U.S. on trade for many years. It will soon stop. So what's happening here? Trump, just like with China, he is stopping what the central bankers were setting up over these past many, many years. Remember, their plan was to have a globalist system. Their plan was to have a one world currency. Now Trump is chopping all that up, and he's creating bilateral trade agreements using tariffs to leverage these trade deals. Because the central bankers, they're just not going to give in. If you say, hey, the trade deal, it's not good for the people here, we need to negotiate, they're going to say, too bad, this is what we have. So Trump needs to use tariffs to force the globalists, to force the central bank into doing what he wants and moving us away from this globalist system. Now, the IMF is out there and they slashed their world growth outlook to the weakest in decades, and they're saying it's because of the tariffs. The thing is that by the time this system comes down, all these tariffs, they won't be there anymore. Trump would have already negotiated a new deal with China, with the EU, if the EU still exists, and there won't be tariffs to blame this entire implosion of the economic system. The blame will be at the central bank. They already have this planned. They know that they were trying to bring down the economic system before 2020. When I say they, I'm talking about the Patriots. They already knew they were going to try to raise interest rates. Look what has happened since Q made that post. No interest rate hikes in 2019. They're ending the tightening of their balance sheet, the central bank's balance sheet. Now, Trump and the Patriots, they're very close to making a deal with China. And now he's pushing the EU to make a better trade deal with the United States. So if the Patriots knew about the central bank raising the rates, trying to bring down the economy in 2020, don't you think they realize that they're going to try to blame it on the tariffs? Of course they do. But they know they need to use the tariffs for leverage. And what's eventually going to happen is they're going to make these deals and they're going to get rid of the tariffs. Yes, as soon as the deal is made, they're not just going to get rid of it. They want to make sure that these countries comply. Once they're complying, the tariffs will then be removed. And what do the central banks do at that point? They're stuck. Now, we know that Trump and the Patriots, they'll be going after the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is completely out of control. They've been out of control for a very long time. And they're acting in ways and with powers that were never explicitly granted by Congress. Now, of course, we're not allowed to audit the Fed to see what else they've been doing, because we know they've been doing quite a bit. And there's a reason why they don't want us to audit them, because we would find out what they were doing. But Trump already started everything in motion, because he's suggesting that Herman Cain and Stephen Moore be put on the Federal Reserve Board. And the bankers, the central bankers, the elite, they don't want this to happen. Cain represents a threat to the cabal that has controlled the central bank for decades. Media outlets and other allied constituencies have howled with rage at the prospect of Trump packing the Fed. While the Fed is meant to be independent from the executive branch on a day-to-day basis, it is certainly not independent of Congress or the law. Yet, the Fed in recent years has shown a troubling tendency to deviate from its legal mandate and make up new authorities to fit the changing economic situation. Here's an example. This notion that we should be seeking 2% rate of inflation. Well, this wasn't part of their mandate. Their mandate was no inflation. So anybody who cares to read the 1978 Humphrey-Hawkins law will know that the Fed is directed by Congress to seek full employment and zero inflation. Not 2%, not 3%, not 9%, but zero. Yet, going back a decade and more, the Fed, led by Janet Yellen, Ben Bernanke, and the rest, they have advanced their policies of actively embracing inflation. And neither Bernanke, Yellen, or any of these individuals bothered to consult Congress when they decided to discard their legal responsibilities. My question is, where is Congress? Why haven't they done anything? Shouldn't they be on top of this? Well, why would they be? They're corrupt. We talk about this many times before. Those individuals in Congress, why would they want to stop something that makes them a huge amount of money? This is all free money. We can borrow, we can put it into our program, siphon it off, have it come back to us. Why would we want to end this? They wouldn't. And we see that there are certain individuals within Congress, on Democrat, on the Republican side, that are not going to support Trump in his push to take over the Federal Reserve, to restructure the Federal Reserve. These individuals, they're going to show themselves. Because just like Q has been telling us in the past, they're going to scream the loudest. Once he starts making the move, individuals are going to come out of the woodwork and you're going to start to realize, whoa, they're in line with the central bank. Look at the people that are coming out saying, we don't want more, we don't want Kane. This will get worse as time goes on. And we're seeing a lot more articles about how the Federal Reserve needs to be independent. Neil Irwin had a New York Times article on April 6, 2019, warning readers of the potential harm if the Federal Reserve loses its independence. The basis for the warning is that Trump seems prepared to nominate Moore and Kane to the Fed, two individuals with no obvious qualifications for the job other than their loyalty to Trump. So listen to what they're saying here. They're worried about Trump putting individuals in that aren't going along with the narrative. They're not part of the system. Trump's not part of the system. And the people that he's bringing in are not part of the system. The people that he's bringing in want to change the system. And this is what they're afraid of. This is why they're talking about independence, that you can't control the Fed. They have to be completely independent. But you can see that Congress, they have completely lost control of the Federal Reserve. They don't care what the Fed does as long as they continually make more and more money. And they're not going to do anything about it. Think about it. Go back to 1913. Where was Congress since 1913? We've only had a handful of people that actually came out and said, maybe we should audit the Fed. It's been a pretty long time. We had Ron Paul, Rand Paul, Thomas Massie, maybe a couple of others. But where's the rest of Congress? They're supposed to be controlling the Fed, overseeing the Fed, and making sure they follow their mandate. Full employment, zero inflation. Is the dollar supposed to lose value? Because that's what zero inflation means. It means the value of the dollar stays the same. Have they done this? No. It has lost value over time. And this is why it takes more and more dollars to pay for the same exact products. So where are the lawmakers? Where are they? They're nowhere to be found. And it's also worth noting that the Fed has been very close to the financial sector. The 12 regional bank presidents who sit on the open market committee that sets monetary policy are largely appointed by the banks in their regions. The Fed's policy has led unemployment to be higher than necessary over much of the last 4 decades. This has prevented millions of workers from having jobs and lowered wages for tens of millions or more. Insofar as the Fed's independence has meant close ties to the financial industry, it has not been good news for most people in this country. Trump right now and the Patriots, they are making the move, putting all the players in place to control the Fed. They will no longer be independent. The people will control the Fed. Structure change is coming. And yes, they need to worry, because once the crisis hits, and Trump, the Patriots, they're going to use the crisis. They know that this economy can't last forever. They know they're going to use this to move everyone into saying, we need to take a look at the Federal Reserve. Think about what Trump has been doing. Every time something happens, he blames it on the Fed. Stock market came down, well, the Fed just raised the rates. Well, if the Fed didn't raise the rates, the economy would be a lot better. Maybe the Fed should lower the rates. He even went so far to say the Fed really didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know anything about tariffs. They don't know about the economy. And he's continually doing this because he's building the narrative. It has already begun. And here we are. We're moving towards the main goal, getting rid of the source of the problem. And that is the central bank system. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.